How's everybody doing tonight? Welcome to the North Carolina Cryptid and Paranormal Project. My name is Tom. I'm the host of the show. And tonight we have Rob, Bigfoot Michigan Rob. What a great show. Guest from a good program. So without further ado, here he is.
Hey Tom, how you doing?
What's going on?
Hey, nothing. First and foremost, man, it's an honor to be to ask to come on your show here today, and it's really a privilege. I on the other side of the coin for our shows that we have, I booked like 100 guests last year, and it's always great when somebody just calls me up and says, "Hey, Rob, you want to be on the show?" I'm like, "Yes." So I'm honored, and it's privileged to be here. Privileged to be here. Thank you.
It's a privilege to have you on. And I told you when I was on, on what was it? It wasn't brunch. It was what's the other
Front
show y'all have?
Texas front porch.
Yeah, Texas Front Porch. I was like, I'd like to have you on too. So here's the opportunity. Once some time came up and I was done doing family events, of taking a little break, and I'm back. So it's glad to have you kind of start back with Bigfoot Michigan Rob. What a great way to start it up.
Yeah, it's awesome. Thank you.
Well, if you want to do like a quick kind of like, I know you like what got you into it, and then kind of work it into your first encounter, because I'm pretty interested in hearing about your encounter because I've never heard it before. So let's do
Okay,
it.
great. It's funny because it's weird because I've told this encounter numerous times, and I always feel like, oh boy, here we go again, Rob with his encounter. But then I realize there's thousands of people on the internet that have
Yeah.
not heard it, so I always feel like I'm boring people. But then again, I do realize there's so many people in the world that they haven't heard it, so I got over that phobia of being like, oh my god, I'm saying this tale again. But for
Same.
me,
Yeah.
yeah, so I always give the same life and energy into it that I do. But I got started, well, real briefly. My channel's Bigfoot Michigan Rob on YouTube, and I started with, and I'm also with Texas Front Porch on YouTube. And it's funny that I wouldn't be into podcasting today, talking about these subjects, if I didn't have an encounter that really did change my life. And that's why I do what I do today. And I can get into why I do that a little later. But it was, I remember the date as clear as my birthday, June 15th of 2018. I was in Cadillac, Michigan,
Mhm.
and I took my girlfriend Cindy fishing. Now, Cindy had never gone fishing. I'd been dating her maybe 4 or 5 years, and we never camped together, fished together. So one day I said, "Hey, you know what, honey? We're going to drive about 3 hours north to Lake Cadillac, and I'm going to rent a boat. We're going to get a little cottage, and we're going to go fishing." Now, for everybody listening, for your audience, Bigfoot was never part of my vocabulary. Now, keep in mind, growing up as a young child, I was into all things strange. I saw Leonard Nimoy, with the In Search Of when they had the
Mhm.
Bigfoot show. I did see like the Patterson Gimlin film as a young kid. I was into monsters. The first thing growing up, my dad always Abbott and Costello met the Wolfman,
Oh
Frankenstein.
yeah.
I mean that wasn't a horror film, but as a little boy, it was a mixture of comedy and horror. And after
Right.
that, I would watch like Lon Chaney, the werewolf, and
Yeah,
Bela
Lon
Lugosi.
Chaney, the werewolf movies, and all that. And
Yeah,
it's funny how real quick, and funny how you mentioned like doing your first encounter, like sharing the bunk, because like there might be people in this group that never heard it before, and that's the way I see it when people ask me to share my encounters. 'Cause I've shared it so much already. I don't mind doing it over again because there might be somebody that never heard it. So it's like let's let that person hear it. So here we go.
yeah,
Let's do it.
yeah. And Tom, you're right because I did for a little while. I thought that I said, Rob, you're being redundant. People are bored
Mhm.
with you, but like you said, Tom, there's so many people in the world. So
Yeah.
I I I approach it the same way every time. And when I approach this story today, it's as though I've never seen a Bigfoot. That's how I'm going to tell the story. And again, dating back, fishing, Cindy and I, Lake Cadillac, June 15th, 2018. I rent a fishing boat. and I buy some tackle. I buy some rods and reels. And we go out onto the lake, onto the water. I rented a small boat, a cheap bass boat, just enough to tool around the lake. Now, the lake, mind you, is huge. I couldn't tell you the acreage of it, but if you look on the map on Google, just go to Lake Cadillac. People listening later or watch your later after the show, if you want to Google it, it's a pretty sizable map, or excuse me, sizable lake. That's on the northwest of Michigan, where I live. So we're out. We get out about 10 o'clock in the morning, and we're fishing along Lake Cadillac. Now, Lake Cadillac, it's pretty well built up, though. Along there's a lot of big mansions. There's average homes, there's small industry, there's mom and pop shops all along the lake. So it is kind of robust and busy. The lake being the size that it is, though, if you get out into the middle, you can be pretty well secluded. So as the day is going on, she's getting bored. We didn't even get a nibble. So I said, let's do a little exploring. So I take this little boat and we're tooling around Lake Cadillac, and we come across this canal, and this canal connected to Lake Mitchell. Now, Lake Mitchell feeds off of Lake Cadillac. And again, Lake Mitchell is sizable. Cool thing about Lake Mitchell is it backs up to the National Forest in Michigan. And so, and there's less homes, there's less business. But let me get you, I won't want to steer you wrong. There are businesses and houses, but far less, it's far more secluded. In fact, I went to a cove on Lake Mitchell, which was really secluded. There was no fishermen on the lake, and it was beautiful. You looked into the woods. The woods dropped off right into the lake. So I put the trolling motor on the boat, very slow, going like a mile an hour, and I'm paralleling shore. So now I'm fixing new tackle and bait for Cindy's fishing pole and for my fishing pole. So I'm looking down, taking care of the tackle.
Real quick, I got a question for you. So that trolling motor, is that like an electric trolling motor? It's battery
Yeah,
powered? Okay, so it
yeah,
barely makes any noise. It's not like a little 9.9 that's like a Briggs and, or the little Johnson Evan rig.
no, it's something that you could probably buy for $40, at your
Yeah,
local. Again, this boat I had,
probably
Tom,
plugged
was,
into a car battery or something, right?
yeah, it was. In fact, to be honest with you, it wasn't even on most of the time, because during this encounter, I remember telling her to shut it off, and we just drifted because the way the current was flowing, we were paralleling the shoreline so we could cast our gear into the shore. So yeah, so I'm looking down. I'm fixing up our bait, our lures, or what have you, and Cindy says, "Hey, Rob," she goes, "I think someone's throwing rocks at the boat."
Hmm.
And I said, "Well, honey, what do you mean?" So I look up the shoreline. There's nothing there. There's not a soul to be found. And again, the wood line drops right into the lake. There's not a sandy beach. There's some rocks. I mean, if you stood at the wood line, I mean, you could probably stand in the woods and look into the water. But as far as there's no beach or anything. So I said, it's probably some bait fish, Cindy. There's probably just some fish jumping around. She goes, yeah, okay, probably. So about 2 or 3 minutes later, I'm trying to, get everything situated, and she goes, Rob, I think someone's throwing rocks at the boat, because she saw a rock splash in front of us, about 3, 4 feet in front of us, in front of the boat. I look up again. I said, honey, there's just no way in hell. She goes, okay. So I'm kind of a little bit, come on, let's, because, settle down, settle down. So it just so happens that I'm setting up the tackle. And for whatever reason, Tom, I look up into the air, the sky, and I see an object like falling from the sky. It was a clear blue sky. I see some object. I can't make it out. The first thing I thought, though, I thought maybe it was a bird. Now, falling. Now, I didn't hear any gunshots, so it wasn't like it wasn't hunting season. That was just the first thought in my head. But then I seen it plopped maybe 4 or 5 feet in front of our boat, and it was a rock. It was about the size of a baseball. So I turned to Cindy, and I was going to tell Cindy, yeah, someone's throwing rocks. But when I look at Cindy, you got to remember, I said this is June 15th. It's summertime.
Yeah.
Cindy and I we're sunbathers, right? So we already had good tans at this time, and she had a ripping tan going, and she was 5'2", like 105 pounds, and I look at her, and I swear, Tom, she's asphyxiated looking at the shoreline, and every color, every drop of tan color in her skin drained, and she was pale as a ghost from head to toe,
Oh wow.
white, white. And I'm looking, I said, well, and I looked ashore, and I'm like 90 feet from shore, and the boat is just drifting, not even moving.
Right.
And I see this being, this hominoid looking thing. It was standing there at shore, kind of like one arm like around a tree, leaning over the tree line into the lake. It had to be about 9 foot tall. It had reddish brown hair, long brown hair. Um, its face was a pale gray, and it kind of looked like a person, an older person with Down syndrome.
Hmm.
And then the front of its chest was less hair and gray. And I'm looking at this thing. I said, it looked like a human being, but then again, all this hair. I mean,
Yeah.
it's just covered and it's flowing, this long, shaggy hair, and but the face was human, but a person with, like I said, Down syndrome. So all of a sudden, it takes his arm off of the tree branch that it was kind of looped around, drops his arms to its side, then he lifts his arms parallel to the shoreline, kind of like it looked like an airplane. And these
Hmm.
arms extended, man, 10 feet. I mean, they didn't stop. And then it kind of leaned back, and then this humanoid looking face, the draw dropped. It had to drop. Remember that video game when we were kids, Pac-Man? How it
Oh
was
yeah.
just like that? The mouth appeared to be like that because it just dropped. It had to drop a half a foot to a foot, just drop straight down.
Wow.
The mouth opened, and the mouth opened from like ear to ear. So you're talking about a mouth that went from ear to ear and dropped down maybe 8 inches down.
Wow.
It exposed two eye teeth that appeared to be like fangs, kind of like an oversized maybe German Shepherd, maybe, or a Doberman Pinscher. They weren't like vampire fangs or wolf
Right.
fangs, but they were oversized teeth that they were long. And at the bottom, there was two like incisors that came straight up. So the two incisors come up like this, and the eye teeth are extended outside of the eye to the bottom incisors. But the thing that really got to me and that really freaked me out is it leans back, and that grayish, ruffled skin, Down syndrome looking human, hominoid, I guess you would call it. The skin tightens up, tight, tight like leather. Eyes kind of roll back, and with that mouth being open in unison, it lets out this screech, scream, and yell without even moving its lips. It's like it just bellowed
Mm.
from its inner girth, and it just expounded this vibrational sound at us. And the thing about this is it hit with such a force. Today, I guess they call it infrasound, but I tell you what,
Yeah.
it was pretty strong because it was like a sonar. I talked to Duke Sullivan, from World Bigfoot
Oh
Radio.
yeah, Duke. I'm good friends with Duke. He's a good
Yeah,
guy.
I talked to him like once a week, man. I became friends with him about 4 years ago, and he describes it. He goes, "Rob, that sounds like a sonic blast." Well, I tell you what, I fell backward a little bit in the boat. And you got to remember, we're standing up on this boat, and it's probably only sitting about 8 inches out of the water. It's a cheap boat. It's nothing that you
A little
maybe might.
skiff boat, little 12, 14 foot skiff boat
Yeah,
on the bottom.
that's it. Yep, absolutely. And as I mentioned, my girlfriend was a small little thing. Well, I hear her, she falls off the side of the boat and she lands into the water. I hear her splash. She lets out a scream. Rob,
Oh crap!
she falls into the water. So now I know she fell off the boat. And I'm looking at this creature. And now I know that I have to turn to my right because she was to my right. I've got to turn to my right to get her. But all of a sudden, Tom, I can't move. Now my vision, it was a pretty day. I seen the pretty blue sky, the
Hmm.
lush green forest, the reddish brown creature at the time. But everything turned into like a filter for me. I saw like through a lens, and everything seemed to turn black and white. And it seemed like time stood still. It seemed like time stood still for
Right.
which seemed like an hour. I know it wasn't. This whole encounter probably takes less than 20 seconds. But now I turn to my right and I cannot move. I am paralyzed. I know that I have to move. I cannot turn. My body is facing this beast and I can't turn to my right. I can't move. I cannot move.
You're like frozen, right?
I'm frozen.
Hmm.
And as I said, time seemed like it stopped. And the picture of this thing was like a grainy black and white. So on my head, I'm shaking my head. Say, Rob, snap out of this, snap out of this. So I do. I snap out of it. And I go to my right. Now all of a sudden, I'm fine. I can see in color. I mean, I got my wits about me now. I get Cindy up into the boat. And I tell you what, though, man, the most scared that I was when I looked to the shore and this thing's gone. And I don't know where it's at. Is it swimming after us? Where is it? I don't know what the hell's going on, right? So I just remember taking a boat, spinning it around. I head back the same way we came in, and I fled across Lake Mitchell. I fled through that canal. I sped across Lake Cadillac, heading toward shore where I knew we had launched the boat at. We get to the shoreline. I dock the boat. I get out. Cindy's shaking. We had some beach towels on the boat, so I'm trying to get her calm, try to stop her from shaking. We're talking about 85-degree weather,
Hmm.
and don't get me wrong, I'm shaking too, but I'm trying to
Yeah, you're
be
trying to
strong
stay
for her.
strong for her.
Yeah, yeah. So we get out of the boat, and I take her, and I look. There's like maybe a half a block or so. I see a restaurant slash type bar. I said, let's just go sit down. Let's go to this place over here, and we get inside. We go back to the corner of this restaurant, and we get in. We get into a corner booth. Cindy don't drink. Waitress comes up. She goes, "I'll take a bottle of Bud Light, a shot of Jack Daniels." I said, "Well,
Wow.
I'll take the same."
Hmm. Double.
Waitress,
Yeah.
yeah, well, yeah, I did say double. So the waitress
Homies like
comes.
that, you probably need a triple shot after an encounter, not just to calm your nerves.
I tell you what. Well, it ensued with a few more after that, but and Cindy, and again, she don't drink. She took that shot down like a champ. Didn't even flinch. Didn't make a face. And she washed it down with the Bud Light, and I
Mm.
followed it up. So we both kick back now. Our lungs are expanded from the alcohol.
Yeah.
And she goes, "Honey, what do you think that was?" She says to me. I said, "Honey, I got an idea, but what do you think it was?" And she says, now, mind you, she and I never spoke about Bigfoot or Dogman or any cryptids or anything paranormal in our lives, right? She goes, I think it was that Bigfoot creature. And
Mm.
I says, I think you might be right. So we just kind of look at each other. And she says, well, Rob, should we go to the DNR, report it, conservation officer, the police? I says, you know what? we don't live here. We're coming up on a little vacation. They're probably going to think we're nuts.
Right.
Let's just keep it to ourselves. She goes, yeah, it's best that we do. But I tell you what, it sucked because Tom, we finished up at that restaurant. We had a few drinks. We had some lunch. Waited an hour or two so we would sober up, and we went home. We left. We went home, and then when we got home, we immersed ourselves on the computer, looking up Bigfoot and looking up all these strange things, trying to figure out what it is. And I never really used YouTube before. I'm not one of these people that use YouTube to like how to change a battery. I never used YouTube hardly in my life except to watch. I would stream like live rock concerts. If I had a party and we'd
Right.
play like live music, and I'd run it through my sound system. But that's all I use YouTube for. But now I'm starting to click in Bigfoot and Sasquatch and things, and so I wasn't really satisfied with a lot of the videos I saw. And so, life goes on, life went on. And like I said, I don't feel this way today. So, another date in my life, June 15th of 2018, I saw Bigfoot with Cindy.
Right.
August 18th of 2018, Cindy died.
Oh wow. Sorry to hear that.
Yeah. I've told the story enough times where I don't cry anymore
Right.
because the first year telling this story, I was just on a show like this right now, I'd cry in front of everybody.
I get it.
Um,
Trust me. I've been through loss, and you know all that. Before we do talk, I got a quick question from dude from Texas. Can you see under the screen?
does he think the craft was connected to the Sasquatch sighting? Does he think the craft?
Because I think you mentioned. I think he thinks you mentioned a craft when something was in the air, but that was a rock, wasn't it?
There was a rock. Yeah, the
It
thing that
wasn't a
falling.
craft. It was rock.
Yeah, no. In fact, it was a rock the size of a baseball. Yep,
Okay,
they're
so it
all
wasn't a
rocks.
craft. It was a rock. Okay.
Yeah.
Question is,
Now that does make sense because we all know ev- again throwing me off the story, but yeah, I've heard of crafts, and all of a sudden Sasquatch appears, so I understand that question. But no, it was just a rock.
okay. And yeah,
So
once again, I'm sorry about your loss. I know that had to be,
yeah,
talking about it and bringing up,
you
but
know,
I'm
you,
sure you guys had a great relationship and you dealt with a good experience together. And I'm just sorry to hear that, that she's not with you anymore. So,
yeah. Well, hey, Tom, man, I appreciate it, and it's been 4 years, and I've talked to several people. I even went and saw a shrink. I'm not going to mince words with you because I was distraught. Never told him about the Sasquatch because I'm going to tell you right now, I thought that thing had something to do with it. See, Cindy died of a heart attack, they told me.
oh, wow.
Now, the thing about Cindy, as I mentioned earlier, she wasn't a drinker, she wasn't a smoker, she ate healthy, she was a workout fiend.
Mm.
Um, Heart attack.
Yeah, that's weird. That's a weird occurrence. Like maybe it had something to do with maybe the infrasound did some nerve damage or messed with her heart rhythm and just kind of,
Well,
you know.
that Tom, that was my thing. When I started investigating this, I figured that we got hit with that infrasound or that sonic blast, like Duke likes to say, that it ruptured her kidneys, her heart, or her lungs, whatever. I mean, little person, right?
Mhm.
I weighed 200 pounds and she weighed 105 pounds, so I didn't really suffer. I kind of felt it, but she got knocked out of the boat. Estimated height was I would say about 9 feet, dude from Texas.
Okay.
Um, So yeah, so for the longest time, man, I got in a dark spot. I got dark, and I thought that this creature had something to do with it. And I'll be honest with you, and I'm not ashamed to say this. I wanted to go back there with a tank
You wanted to take that
and
thing
just
out.
take it out.
You wanted, an eye for an eye because that's how, I mean, I don't blame you. I would have been the same exact way if I was in your shoes. I would have went out there with a goddamn bazooka and looking, hunting that thing down.
I've even I've even used that reference bazooka. I've machine gun, whatever. And the thing would happen, I got really depressed, and I owned a business. And when she passed, I didn't go to work for 6 months. I told my people, I said, I'm going to trust you guys. take whatever money we make and just put it in the bank, and I'll deal with it later. Just don't rip me off. And I didn't even care if they did. I didn't. So then I started reaching out to certain people.
Hmm.
Then I finally got good contacts. Duke Sullivan was one of them. He's a great friend of mine to help me through this.
Yeah.
I
Duke's a
got a
great
whole.
guy. He's an awesome friend and helpful. Him between him, Robin, and everyone else in that side of the community. Everyone's so much helpful and
Mhm.
gives you insight and information, and they don't ask for nothing in return. They're just
Yeah,
helpful people.
because then I started questioning my own sanity. I was
Hmm.
like, did I even see that? Did I manifest this? Was this like a big? Did I just manifest this in my brain and I didn't see it? So I thought I was going off the deep end. I really did. I probably wouldn't have gotten to that point though had she not passed. Right?
Right,
I think we would have worked through it together and figured out what it was together. But now I'm by myself. I mean, I have my brother, my sister, my mom, my dad, right? Which I
right.
love them. But when you have an experience with somebody else,
Mhm.
and you know, the funny thing, Tom, you hear a lot of encounter stories. I don't think you've ever had a couple see something like that during the daytime, not only see it, but have it vocalized at you.
Right.
I mean, I know that I suffer PTSD, you
Oh heck
know,
yeah.
and so I will say this: I'm good today. You know, I mean, I've grieved. I'm past my grief. You know, I'll always forever love her. Every time I tell the story, I never forget her, and I never will. But every time, even like right now, telling the story now again for me, it's good. It's a good thing today to tell the story. That's why I even alluded to it. God, I got to tell this story again. Well, no, for me, it's like therapy. You know,
It is.
so
And
another.
there might be somebody out there that had the same exact experience as you, and they suffered a loss, and they might need to hear this so they could talk about it to other
Well,
people to get it off their chest and to get that monkey off their back to get that relief that when you tell these stories, when you tell your encounter to someone or just share it with anybody, whether it's this way or someone personal, like it just the relief is so much better after telling somebody.
and what you say is a perfect segue into this. This is why I do what I do today now, Tom, is because I don't do. I'm not. Listen, I'm not doing this for money. Am I doing it? Do I want to grow my channel big? And do I? Yeah, of course. Everybody that's worth a cent in America wants to be successful. I don't care what you do.
Hmm.
You can cut lawns. You can work for the big three. You could be a software engineer. You can be a podcaster. You want to have a following and you want to be good. But my thing is this: if I can tell my story, if one person tonight in chat or listening later on your show can relate to this and make them feel better, then I'm doing my job. Because my goal, number one, is to help people that have traumatic experiences with these cryptids,
Oh
which
yeah,
are not supposed to exist. My
that
best friend to this day does not believe me. My brother believes me, my sister, my niece and nephew, they all believe me. But some of my closest friends think I'm nut, even today. You know, they know that I have a podcast, but they don't listen to it or watch it because they think
right.
that it's a scheme. And I don't care what he thinks. I don't care what anyone thinks about me because you know what? You're not going to take away what I've seen. You know what I mean?
Exactly. They can't take away what you like. Same thing, like you said, like people like when I had my encounter in Canada with my brother. He still doesn't to this day. He's one of those diehard hunters that doesn't believe what we saw because if he believes that and he takes that into consideration, then he's never going to hunt again because that'll scare the crap out of him to go into the woods and pitch black or first early before sunrise.
You
So
know,
yeah.
I know many people. I don't know if anybody's familiar with Bigfoot Odyssey and Kerry Arnold. He's another guy to help me out, and he didn't. He quit hunting after he had his encounter, and he's one of the other guys. Him and Duke are the two people I spoke with in the very beginning. But also, when you mentioned hunting, it's funny because I did mention my brother believes me. I mean, he they know I'm not lying, but they are still like Bigfoot, really. So my brother's an avid hunter, and about 2 years ago, he lines up a deer in the forest, takes aim, shoots it. Now my brother's been hunting for 20 years, so he knows how to track. He knows the woods. He tracks this deer for several hundred yards. The blood trail ends at the base of a big tree. Base of the tree, the stump had to have been like 5 foot wide, he says. And the blood is there, and he sees where the deer fell. And he can see imprint, right? He can see the outline of the deer, but the deer is not around. He can't
Hmm.
find the deer. So he looks around and he notices because he's thinking maybe somebody snagged his deer and snuck off with it. But then
Right.
he looks, there was no footprints.
Hmm.
There was no four-wheeler tracks. In fact, in this little area where it was at the forest was not disturbed. So he's like, man, there's no tracks, there's nothing. So he's perplexed. So he's looking at the base of this tree, the big old stump. And it's a tree. I say stump. It's not a stump. It's still the tree's intact. And he's looking up and he sees a blood trail that's going from the base of the tree about 10, 12 feet up the tree, and it's smeared in blood. And then all of a sudden, the blood stops.
Oh wow.
So my brother says, hey, Rob, you think that's that Bigfoot creature? I gave, well, I can't say yes or no, but what other explanation is there for it?
Yeah. I mean, I know people will say like a mountain lion or a cougar can drag them up a tree, but it depends on the size. If you get 140, 150 pound full size buck, they're not going to be able to carry that up a tree like that. I
Yeah,
could see maybe a 40 to 70 pound
yeah.
smaller size deer, yeah, but when it's over 100 something pounds, there's no
Well,
way they can carry it up a tree like that.
well, the thing is, you're right. And my brother said, I said, what was it, a deer or what? My brother told me it was a buck, but he also said, and I also know this, as you probably know, Tom, something like cougars, mountain lions, they will. A lot of them will actually take their prey. They can take it up a tree, as you said, but if
Mhm.
to hoard it from the other predators and eat it or stash it away or whatever. But I tell you what, he says, and this tree was so big. I mean, I couldn't even. It would it would have been a big cat, right, or a big predator to do that because he said it was a pretty nice sized buck. So I kind of have to rule that out.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
once again, too, there was no prints of anything. There was not human prints. There wasn't,
Yeah, just
and
like
nothing.
the deer in my backyard. I missed a shot on a deer. I told you that whole story of the woods behind my house.
Yeah.
Missed a shot on a deer. I saw it run left. The next day or two, that same deer was laying to the right under on a gifting tree with its neck snapped backwards, and I dragged it, about 30 yards, and I couldn't do nothing with it because the meat was already spoiled. So I left it there where I dragged it 30 yards, and you could see where I had you could see like a drag mark with the leaves, and then where I left it, the next day I came back, it was completely gone, and there was no tuffles of fur, nothing, no like, you can kind of use your detective senses and see like a
Yeah.
coyotes come in and tear. There'll be tufts of fur everywhere, blood, little skin grifts, and all that. There was nothing there. It was just like something threw it over its shoulder and hauled it. Said, "All right, well, you don't want it. We'll take it back." So I know
Well,
what you mean. Like there's no
yeah.
footprints, and it's just like wow.
You know, and and then, and after all this happened to me, it's like then I just went down like I started my I started I well what I did, I never started a podcast, but what I did was I just made a YouTube video. As I mentioned earlier, I didn't use YouTube for nothing. I made, it was suggested just to put it on video and just put it out to the public and maybe people will comment back, and I did do that. And then but then I just started researching on the computer, talking to other great researchers, looking on YouTube, trying to find things, and then that kind of ended up me hooking up with Tex, and I tell him I want to get a show together, and he already had his show, Texas Front Porch,
Mhm.
and then we formulated, came up with Bigfoot Michigan Rob and Brunch with Bigfoot, which is now turned into 5 shows. And so, but the thing about this is, I have so much to talk about because that I've learned. I'm learning a lot about myself, is because ever since this encounter, I'm realizing things that I've actually experienced in my past and now my present. Now I see more things, like more with an open mind. And Jessica Jones, she's a part of our team, and she says my frequencies have been open, like that third eye.
Yeah, she does the remote viewing, and she's actually in the chat. Hey, Jess, and that's awesome that you have her on the team to do like the kind of check on old, I wouldn't say old tales, but old occurrences that happen, and she can kind of go back and use her remote viewing. You know, uh, in her mind and kind of
Yeah,
see like if some of these stories were really true. And
yeah,
I think like she kind of concurs on a lot of these things actually happened to what people said happened, which is awesome.
yeah. Her show is awesome, and she does a great job with that, and that show's fantastic. And I've never really had a remote view mind because I kind of know what happened with me because I was doing a show with Robin McCrae, and
Hmm.
Robin was on. And if you guys were watching the show, again, I don't like to plug my show, but I am Bigfoot Michigan Rob is my channel, and I did a show. It's on YouTube, and Robin McCrae. We're 20 minutes into our interview, Tom,
Hmm.
and I never met Robin. I never
Right.
told Robin about my encounter story
Hmm.
because, quite frankly, when I do an interview, I'm not telling people about me. I want to hear about them.
Yes.
But she says to me, "Hey, Rob, Delano says he meant you no harm." Now she says this mid interview. I mean, it had nothing to do with whatever question I asked her. She mentions this, and on air, and I don't really swear on air. I just don't do it. And I said, "What the hell are you talking about?" And I use the f bomb anyways. What the
Right.
fuck are
Right.
you talking about? She goes, "Yeah, he meant you no harm." I said, "Well, who the hell's Delano?" She goes, "That's the Bigfoot that you and Cindy saw back in 2018 in the forest. He says he meant you no harm. He didn't mean to scare you. And he most certainly didn't cause the death of Cindy. Knows the death of Cindy. Never told Robin this. And there's some other things that she made mention of that I didn't tell anybody, not
Yeah.
even my mom or dad or my brother, that she knew. Now that baked my noodle, and I almost fell out of the chair doing this interview. So, anyways, she says that this Delano character was trying to get a hold of me through Mindspeak, but she says that I was not letting him in, not letting him in for whatever reason.
Well, you
And
probably had resentments and anger towards that situation, and it's funny because Robin, hey Duke's in the chat too, but
hey, Duke,
Robin told me some really um, intensive details about my property, and she's never been to my house or anything like that, and she blew my mind away. I'm like, I knew by her telling me that, I was like, she's the real deal. She knows what she's talking about. She's not bullshitting anybody when she tells you
yeah,
stuff. Like, I take everything with like, full intent. Like, she's not just saying it; she means it all. And I was just blown away because she like described my property. She named the Squatch on my property and told me like that they watch me from
yeah,
the deck, the pool deck in the backyard. It's just crazy, and she
yeah.
just blew me away.
And when she told me, and I tell you what, I every time I tell my encounter and I bring up Robin, it's because I 1,000% back her. I believe her 100%. I trust her, and she's legitimate 100%. And she was telling me that the reason that it screamed, roared, and yelled at me was the fact that there was children. There was four Bigfoot in the area. There was the Bigfoot that I saw. Then there was the female, and then they had two juveniles or two younger ones, and basically they were protecting
Yeah,
their
they're
own.
telling you to get back and don't
Yeah,
come near kiddos because they protect
you
their
know,
young.
and that's exactly what she said. They were just protecting their own, and they meant no harm, and they basically were communicating through her to me that they were sorry, but they had no ill will. And so that kind of, yeah, Tom, that pulled everything together. That made a full circle for me today. That's why today I'm good. You know, I tell you what, 4 years ago, if someone was talking about mind speak and telepathy, I would say, okay, whatever. You know,
Oh, I know, I
what
get it.
you
4 years
know,
ago, you think these things are just like wood apes or like just basic an animal in the woods or leftover
yeah,
hominid. Now they have all these capabilities and they're ancient. They know what the bend mind frequencies and portals
yeah,
and it's like back then I would have thought you're wearing a tinfoil hat, you're crazy and this and that. But now I'm buyer of it all. So
yeah. And that's the thing too. I buy it. I mean, I will tell you this, like I mentioned earlier in the interview, I believed in Bigfoot as a kid. I believed in ghosts as a kid. But you can believe in it, but believing is one thing and knowing is another,
yeah,
and having
believing
the
and knowing and
experience
seeing.
is another. You know what I mean? And then it's all comes full circle because I started seeing ghosts at 5, 6, 7 years old. What I thought was my imagination as a kid, someone was telling me that I probably have seen ghosts what I saw that I thought were my imagination were probably ghosts. In fact, me and my brother, my mom and dad and I, we went in the Upper Peninsula. My mom and dad would take us camping, but camping in like a cottage, a log cabin. So there was this open bay window in our bedroom. Me and my brother would sleep in at night, and the moon would always it would always shine right into our window. So it was always a light in the window. And this window was probably 5 foot tall by 6 foot wide. I mean, it's sizable. And you got to remember, we're 7 years old, so we're probably 4 foot, whatever. We're little kids. And every night, for 3 days in a row, every night, this, this the gleam from the moonshine coming through the window would get blackened out with a shadow. It would come and cross it, blacken it out, stop. It was a huge object, and it moved away, kind of like glided right past the window. And it was very deliberate. It was very slow. It was like something walked past it. That had to be something big. And now I'm talking to certain people that I probably had a Bigfoot encounter or something that was watching over me and my brother as kids. A lot of the ghosts that I seen as a kid, they were ghosts from what I'm finding out today. You know, it's so many things. I owned a bar for 13 years, and I would see ghosts in my bar at night when I had to close up. So my mind is just open. I think, I don't know. It's been quite an experience having this encounter. But I think it was preconceived at a young age.
Uh-huh. Absolutely, and I know like I believe like I did reports on UFOs when I was in like before I even got into middle school. I was doing reports on UFOs because my uncle worked at a Caterpillar. He did like microprocessing on those really big cassette discs back in the day that
Yeah.
took like 8 hours to download all their data for the day. Well, I'd be in the computer room doing UFO reports while he was working and to like past midnight and all night and overnight shift, and I enjoyed it. So he took me to see the movie Communion. I did sweat lodge with my uncle. He took me to powwows. He taught me the native ways. So I learned a lot when I was younger to kind of buy into it. There's more out there than what we perceive. So it kind of gave me an open mind at a young age. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I hear you 1,000% because a lot of the things I saw as a kid, I didn't think much of. I thought they're as an adolescent, as a young child growing up, that was just part of being a kid growing up. You always imagine things, my imagination going on. And now looking back, I think that I was really in communication with a lot of these things. In fact, a quick story. I think my niece, well, I know my niece had an ability because, well, in part, here's a story. My brother and sister, they bought a house. This is probably about 15 years ago. And my little niece, she was about 5 or 6 at the time. They had a playroom for her. And they had those French doors in their playroom, and they're made of glass. So my brother and my sister-in-law could look in and watch on her as she was playing. And they would always see her talking into the closet, just communicating, talking. And my sister-in-law, her name's Karen, said, "Hey, Lauren," my niece is Lauren. "Hey, Lauren, honey, who are you talking to?" She goes, "Oh, no, my playmate, Jenny." She goes, "Oh, hi, Jenny." She goes, "Mom, Jenny's not here. Every time when you came in the room, she took off." It's so Karen. She's like, "Oh, okay, whatever." So this would happen 2, 3, and 4 times. Karen would come in, talking to Jenny, talking to Jenny. So Karen was starting to get a little worried that she had my niece had an overactive imagination and started kind of wondering about this Jenny person. So one night, my brother, sister-in-law, they're in bed. The door opens, and they thought it was Lauren, but it was a shadowy figure of a little girl.
Wow.
So, well, what's really gets crazy is this. I'm just gonna cut. I'm gonna edit that for time purposes. But every time I would spend the night there, this happened to me three separate occasions. My brother lived about 40 minutes from me, so when I went over, I usually spent the night. So they had a bedroom for me that I would go to sleep in, and the room was dark, pitch black, a blackened room. And the first night there, the door would open. about 6, 7, 8 inches, and I see a shadowy figure. And I say, "Hi, Lauren. This is Uncle Robbie. You want to come sleep with Uncle Robbie? Tell you a story." And then the door was shut. Boom. Second time this happens, the same thing. Uncle Robbie, hey. So the third time this happens, Tom, I'm like, that little shit. I'm gonna get out and chase her down. I'm done with these games, right? This is like my third time there. So I see this little girl, a shadowy figure, open the door. I jump out of my bed and I race down the hallway. I don't see her. Her bedroom was maybe 15 feet from my bedroom. I open her bedroom door, and my niece is cuddled up as tight as you can be, snuggled up in her bed, sound asleep. And I know that she did not get down the hall that fast. And I know she was not old enough to tuck herself in. I
Mm-hmm.
knew that was a ghost. I'm
Oh,
thinking, anyways. So Thanksgiving rolls around. We're all sitting around. And I tell Dave and Karen, I say, yeah, I got to tell you something. I think your house is haunted. I keep seeing a ghost of Lauren. My mom says the same thing. My brother and sister say, she talks to this little girl named Jenny. We've seen her. So now we're all like, oh my God. So now we're all collaborating. So
mm,
now my brother says, you know what? I gotta check something out. He investigates the history of this house.
yeah.
That house was built on an ancient burial ground
Mm.
200 years prior to them living there. There was a massacre of Indians by the white man.
Oh no.
So this little girl, who Lauren would explain, dark skinned,
Mm-hmm.
long dark hair, you put two and two together. It's
Yeah.
probably a spirit from that happening.
Ancient
Yeah,
mounds that
you
hold
know.
sacred powers.
So so needless to say, they moved out of there.
Mm-hmm.
Now I have a little follow up to this story. So that was now my niece is now she's 25. So this is years. So this happened a couple months ago. I'm like in my bedroom and the door opens and I see, guess what? I see a shadowy figure, but not the small one that I saw like my niece, remembering my niece, but it looked like my niece, but now about 4 feet tall. It looked like about a 5.5 foot girl. I seen this twice in back to back nights. The second time I jump out of bed and I go, I thought maybe, and to be honest with you, Tom, I thought it was Lauren. She came into my house. She's
Mm-hmm.
got no key to my house. So I opened the door and I looked at all the bedrooms. There's no one in my house. All the doors are locked and everything is like, I said, man, I got the chills. I said, man, I know I'm not going crazy. I know I saw Lauren as an adult now. I
Okay.
went back to bed that night, man, and it happened again. And I got up, and this time, how the door was 6 to 8 inches open, it shut. It shut on me. And I went to grab the handle to open the door. And guess what, dude? I couldn't open the door for about 2 seconds. It was stuck. Then I finally got it open. And again, I checked the house. There's nobody in the house.
Mm. Well, something was holding that door from being open.
Yeah, absolutely. And I looked around. I even called my niece, who was like, "What are you waking me up for?" Of course, I wasn't there. She thought I was going crazy, but I kind of was for a little bit there. That was like 2 months ago. So yeah, I mean, ever since I've had my Bigfoot encounter, I've seen things. I've experienced a lot of crazy things, and that's why I'm glad that I'm in the community I'm at, and I got the great people that I hang out with today because no one believes half these things. First of all, who's going to believe a Bigfoot? Some people believe in ghosts more so than a Bigfoot, but it's just I think once you see something like that, Tom, I think it just opens your energy, your frequency. It just changes.
Oh
You're
yeah,
more open to things.
sure. Did you mention you had another encounter in August?
No, August was when Cindy died. I
Okay.
imagine, yeah, of 2018. Yeah, but yeah,
That's not easy living through that, but I'm sure it kind of helps kind of get people, notoriety and how things, how things can happen from encounter and how it kind of coincides with the future of Robin telling you, like, they had no intentions on that and it really
yeah.
wasn't their fault. But at the time you were, obviously you were in that state of mind where you were just, you didn't care.
No, Yeah, I was. At that time during that encounter, no, not at all. And again, it's been 4 years, and I'm so grateful to her because she really opened up my mind. And I was still always in the back of my mind, I was not a big fan of Sasquatch or Bigfoot. I thought, and then she brought me to my senses. I've talked to her personally, and it makes sense, Tom. There are good people, there are bad people. There are good Sasquatch, there are bad Sasquatch, just like
Yeah.
anything else, like any walk of life. There's good entities, there's bad entities. It doesn't matter. There's evil and there's good, right? So not only with human beings, but with these other realms, these other things we deal with, these other energies, frequencies, whatever you want to call them. There's good and bad in everything. And
Oh yeah.
today, my mind is way open to. In fact, one of the mottos on my show is, if someone has an encounter story, I believe. Who am I to tell you had no encounter?
Hmm.
Because I certainly trust that you believe what I told you. And if you didn't, I wouldn't care anyway, because I know what happened, you know?
Yeah, exactly. And it's like, just like you said, it was your encounter. No one can, can't anybody take that away from you, what you experience, whether they believe it or not. It's not, it's on them.
Yeah.
You know what happened, you experience it, and, end of story, period. That's the way I kind of take mine too, because mine's a little, not off the chart, but it's just kind of unbelievable if you never heard of Bigfoot and you don't think these things are out there. I mean, especially when they're roaming in the woods behind your house. And every time you go in the woods, it seems like every time I go in the woods lately, there's more trees knocked down over trails. And I'm like, why do these things keep knocking trees down? I mean, these aren't little trees either. These are 18 to 20-inch round trees that are 40 feet long that are pushed over, blocking trails. And I got to go get a chainsaw and cut them down, chop them up to be able to get back in the woods behind my house because the trails are so narrow. You know what I mean?
Yes. And it's like, now, yeah, now you're more aware when you go out in the woods, the forest, right? Even my brother,
Yeah.
the hunter, how come I've never seen Bigfoot? And then he's been doing it for 20 years. And then he told me about the deer story. But now when he hunts, you know what he does? He looks for the breaks, right? He looks for tracks. I mean, he's kind of now more open minded to, hey, he kind of like looks for the clues, see if there's any signs of them. He hasn't come up with anything, but it's cool at least that he takes the initiative now to look for the things that now we all look for with since we've had these encounters and such.
Oh, absolutely. And the next thing I came up across with was a few weeks back, my ladder that I had mounted to my deer stand. It's like a little cheap aluminum extension ladder that I just something that someone would probably get rid of, throw it out in the trash. I use it to get up on my tree stand. Well, that's missing now, and I had it
Yes.
screwed to the 2x6 wood block, cross member of wood. So a human can't take that ladder off that. So something took my ladder, and I guess they didn't want me going in that tree stand for a while. Maybe they got young nearby and they don't want me going back there. I don't know.
No, I don't think so.
It's all good though. I
Excuse me.
respect the land. I respect when I go back there, and if I bring something out, something small, I announce myself and I do all that, and I clean up any mess back there. If someone leaves garbage back there, I clean up. You got to kind of respect the nature of the land, and they see you doing that. They know what's going on.
They can feel your intentions right when you walk in the woods. If you're what you're up to. If you're a good person, bad person, or they just know. I mean, they have that innate ability to sum up a person quicker than you or I could sum up a person. And I think I'm good at it. Being in the bar business for 13 years, I can judge a character within 2 minutes. But I tell you what, I think they can judge us in under 10 seconds. I really do.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, they know everything. They know, like I said, they can tell you're coming into the woods before you even get in the woods. They know you're coming.
They probably know when you're pouring a cup of coffee, sitting in your kitchen, getting ready to take off.
Yeah, it's like, yeah, I have like a thing like because there's a lot of times where I used to go out before, like, before the summertime came, because you go out, I go out, take my dogs out at like 6 a.m. Well, a lot of times I take my dogs out, and they could probably see the lights on in the back in the kitchen from the woods, and a lot of times, like, in the fall, early winter, right when I take the dogs out, I'd hear all kinds of whoops and whistles and howls and monkey chatter, and it sounded like, parrots going back and forth, and it's just crazy. And I'm like, there's no way this is an owl. And then it goes from an owl to a parrot to a monkey, and I'm like, yeah,
Yeah.
it's like Sasquatch Jim is taking up the owl call, Sasquatch Mike over here is taking up the monkey call, and then Sasquatch Joe is doing the parrot call, and they're all talking back and forth, saying, "Oh yeah, Tom's coming out. Let's say hi to him."
Yeah,
You know?
that's awesome. Yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, I tell you, it's you know, 4 years ago, like I say, Tom, I would never thought of this, and I would have thought this was all crazy talk. But I and now when even despite the fact that I suffered a loss, I would not trade this experience for the world. It's really opened me up. I mean, life goes on, and of course, I mourn the loss, but I was taught and I learned that life does go on. I'm young. I'm not an old guy, and things happen for a reason. And and I'm more open minded to everything around me. I'm more conscious of other people, my own self consciousness too, right? And I respect human life that much more today, and the value of the woods, and the value of what's going on around you. You know.
Got a question for you from West Coast Dogman Shane.
Question. No, I've only seen the Bigfoot once. But I've had certainly paranormal encounters. I've had the paranormal encounter I just spoke of with my niece and at my house. I've got a story that we'll have to do for another day. I've seen a group of ghosts in my bar, but I will tell you this, and that's a cool story, but it's too long. It's about 30 minutes long. But I will tell you this, as far as paranormal, there's a section of my house where I'll be watching. Now, again, this always happened after all. Now, this happened after the encounter. See, I'll stay up late nights and I'll watch a lot of Bigfoot stuff or paranormal stuff, and some things that kind of creep me out. Actually, I'm single. I don't have a steady girlfriend living here, so I'm pretty much by myself.
Right.
And so anyway, I'm looking down the hallway, and this hasn't happened in about 6 months because I've since had my house cleansed.
Mhm.
I will say that. But I would have coming down my hallway. I'd be watching TV. I'd be sitting in a recliner, and I would see this grayish blackish fog start creeping down my hallway, and it's kind of swirling, but it's moving, and it's about 6 inches off the ground, and I see it edging towards me. So I'm sitting in this recliner. I'm kind of looking at it, like what the hell is this now? Then
Wow.
it starts swirling around my chair, my
Dang.
recliner. But now I want to get up and investigate this, but now I'm paralyzed, much like when I was paralyzed when I had my Bigfoot encounter.
Hmm.
The only thing that I can move is my eyeballs left, right, up, and down and see this thing swirling around the chair. And this the first time this happened to me, Tom. It lasted. It seemed like an endless amount of time. I started getting a cold sweat, and it just went away. It happened again, and then I remember. Then I started watching things about exorcisms and things like that. I talked to somebody. They said next time this happens, start saying the Our Father, or you use that terminology. Lord of Jesus, I denounce you, or I whatever that term is. So one time this happened, and I started saying the Our Father, and it went away as fast as it started swirling around my chair. Then I went and got the sage and all that, and I had the house blessed, all the windows, every window, every door jam was all I had that all blessed and cleansed the entire house because I didn't know what I was dealing with. I mean, maybe I brought something home from somewhere. I don't know.
Right.
So things like that. I don't want. I will say this tonight. Not tonight. I do not watch stuff like that because I believe we can manifest our own things. I think if you believe in something long and hard enough, you can manifest things. I would 5 years ago I'd have told you that you're full of bunk, but I think people can do that.
Well, that's what the natives say about the skinwalker. You talk about the skinwalker long, you can manifest that power of the skinwalker, and they can come harass you. Now, Sasquatch has a question for you before we go any
Yeah.
further.
An aggressive is that for miss? Have I ever experienced
Yeah,
an
I do.
aggressive poltergeist? No, I mean, like I said, I think the most aggressive thing, I think that what I just mentioned about that swirling of mist around the chair. That was pretty aggressive. I mean, I couldn't move. I was paralyzed again for that. I Somebody says it could have been sleep paralysis too.
Yeah.
And I guess when you have sleep paralysis, you do get paralyzed. But the thing about this time when I seen this, I know I was awake. I was not dreaming or sleeping. I know I was watching TV. I know fully that I was awake. Sleep paralysis, I think you feel the same way. I think you're sleeping, but your eyes are open. But I can tell you, I can see around my whole house with my eyeballs. And when it went away, it was just like again that filter just kind of dissipated, and it was back to normal. But you were kind of in a different state. It's kind of hard to explain unless you've experienced it. You're awake, you see it, but you're not in the present being. You're not in the present state.
Right. I get that, and so I lived in a haunted house in New Jersey before I moved to the Carolinas, and we had all kinds of crazy experiences. And there was a spot in the hallway where you walked down the hallway, and it was right near the bathroom where the person, themselves. That we didn't know about it until after we moved out, but that same spot was the hair in the neck in the back of your neck stood up, and it was like a 10-degree temperature chill when you walked in that spot in the hallway. And even our cats used to go crazy, like their hair would stand up and they'd run across to get past that bathroom door because it felt awkward whenever you went, even taking a shower in that bathroom. It felt like it was so heavy in there and felt like someone was watching you. It was just creepy. Yeah, it was a creep house. And
Yeah. Uh,
unfortunately, I had broadheads put in my hunting boots, and I didn't know it until I looked inside and saw something shiny, and I pulled a broadhead
yeah.
for my arrows out of my hunting boots, and nobody went into that basement except me. So that spirit was trying to get me hurt.
Yeah, I hear and today it's not that I'm scared of those things today. What I know today now, Tom,
Yeah,
I oh, years ago when I was married, my wife and I like to go to, and I still do, but I don't, antique shops. I heard, man, there's a lot of things you can get attached to in there.
yeah,
You've got these old relics from
yeah,
all around the world that have been dropped off. I mean, you don't know what entity or what was left behind. And I don't want to get attached with nothing because I will tell you this: a good friend of mine in the Bigfoot world told me once you see a Bigfoot, you get attached. I mean,
mm,
it's like you're marked, and you can be marked for anything supernatural, whether it's a Bigfoot, an
right,
entity. Now your frequency, your wavelengths are more open, more susceptible because they know that your mind you can see these things now, right? So I'm kind of leery. I'm even leery about watching like the Exorcist on television. I really am because I don't even watch that no more because I don't think I believe in my mind I can manifest that. Probably not true, but that's the way I think today.
yeah. Absolutely. I mean, you gotta have an open mind with everything and be careful. Like you said, I kind of try to want to try to bless yourself or sage up or carry some healing stones, some quartz crystals and all that before you go out into the anywhere. Really, I mean, you need that protection.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm just more cautious today. You're right.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we moved 700 miles away from that house, and I think that house is leveled out. They bulldozed that whole property over, but that was a creepy house. And funny thing is, about after we moved out of that house, my brother had his bunch of his workers were living in that house, and they remodeled the basement, which was like a old style cobblestone wall, like that round stone foundation. Well, that was the wall for the basement cellar, and they redid and remodeled that, and they put like 3 or 4 bedrooms in that cellar. And all those guys that lived in the house that were renting from him after I moved out, none of them wanted to stay there after about 4 months. So
Yeah.
that tells you something about that house. That was definitely something going on there that I wasn't bull crapping anybody.
No way. No, I hear you, man.
We've had stories where actually my sister-in-law told me that they would have priests come bless the house because they were the Hispanic guys that were staying there were real superstitious, and they'd have priests every couple of weeks bless the house, and it wasn't doing nothing.
Oh, wow. Ugh.
Yeah. But hey, you live and you learn, right?
Yeah, you do, and I would trade my life for anything. You take the
No.
good, you take it with the bad. You got to move on and live life. And I think I'm blessed in a certain strange way. You know, some negativity has happened, but a lot of positive too. The positive, I've met so many friends now through this. I've got more friends the last 4 years since I started doing this than I've had
Hmm.
that really that I can say I count on today and can trust. And that's kind of a shame considering you grow up with, for 20 years with certain people, right? And now there's people that I've known for 2 and 3 years that I consider better friends today. But I think that's a good thing too, though.
Yeah, exactly. And I've met a lot of good people doing this, and everyone's been friendly and kind, and just easygoing with talking about this kind of topic. I wouldn't trade it for the world. Although I still got to work 40 hours a week, and be a family man like we
Yeah.
discussed earlier, and do things and try to fit in hobbies. So it's like if I could put more time into it, I would. But I do what I can do, and I'm happy with it, and I love this. I do what I love, and I enjoy it. So just this time of the year, really really crazy because my job, I fix air conditioners, and this is
Oh,
high demand for the AC business right now.
oh, good. You know what? Hey, I gotta tell you something right now, Tom. I just swear, just today, I think it's probably my thermostat because I got it set on 72. It's like 90 degrees here yesterday. So my air conditioner does not turn off. I put it on 72. It hits 72. It should shut off,
Mm.
but it keeps running and running and running. It runs for like a half hour, then it'll finally shut off. I mean, it will run. It won't shut off when it's supposed to.
Is it
I don't.
digital or is it old
It's
school
it's it's
Mercury?
digital. It's
Okay.
digital.
Sometimes, based on the sensors in those, and given the humidity, go outside and rinse that coil off with a hose.
Oh, okay.
That'll make it run more efficiently. That'll get all the soot out of the coils, and it'll be able to breathe better.
Oh,
Because
good
it's running
idea.
really hard, so it's running extra longer because it's not keeping that temperature set.
Oh,
The
okay.
thermostats are set where, and just real quick, digital thermostats are set. I know this isn't cryptid related, but
Yeah, I,
I'm giving everybody free advice right now if you got an air conditioner. So a digital thermostat is they have a temperature differential. So you set your thing to 72.
yeah.
Most of these thermostats aren't going to shut off until they reach about 71, 70.5 or 71 degrees because there's that 1 to 2 degree offset. So for it to satisfy, it has to actually get to like 71 degrees if you set it for 72. And
Okay.
as it's 100 degrees out, it's going to make your unit run even hotter. Um, and to get rid of that heat load in the house and make the heat transfer to get the cooling back. So if you rinse off your outside coil with a hose and get all those fins cleared up,
Yeah.
that'll make it run more efficient and won't run as hard, and it'll probably satisfy quicker and not run as long after you have it set for 72.
Okay. Well, good. Right after the show, I'm gonna go around and do that.
Get your free local friendly
Thanks.
HVAC advice
I'll
for.
send me your PayPal account. I'll send you $20.
Oh God, I do enough, man. I'm just I'm actually the guy that you see like climbing a ladder on extension ladder on a rooftop to work on a commercial restaurant or something. That's like the
Uh,
big behemoth units the size of a car. Those are the ones
okay.
that
Yeah.
I work on.
Well, that's good. Well, that's at least good. There's more money in that, I suppose, than
Well,
residential.
I guess, and it keeps me in good shape, and I get a good tan in the summertime, so I can't complain.
Well, anybody seen your pictures on Facebook, man? You're ripped, so you look good.
Well, I appreciate that. I try to stay in shape, and getting older sucks. So I got glasses, and it is what it
Yeah.
is. But hey,
Yeah. It is.
you know,
Yeah.
roller coaster ride, yeah,
Yes,
all
sirree.
around, all around the world. But I had a good time, and I definitely would like to have you come back on and do your paranormal stuff. That would be awesome.
Yeah, I got some pretty cool stories about my bar. That were, I'm convinced that there was beings in my bar. I don't want to get started, Tom, because it'll take another 2 hours, so we'll save it for part two. We gotta have some good stuff for the next time.
No worries. I'm real appreciative to have you on it, and I am appreciative for you to come on. I'm honored that you were willing to come on tonight because, like I said, I
Yeah,
took a couple weeks off doing some stuff with family and functions and weddings and graduations and anniversaries. So I'm back, and I came back with Bigfoot Michigan Rob. So I enjoyed a great night with you, and
yes,
we'll do it
and I
again.
thank you, Tom, and I am honored. I am honored and humbled, And I do have to say, everybody in chat listening, Bigfoot Michigan Rob, that's my YouTube channel. Subscribe. I'm getting close to 1,000. I can do free stuff when I hit 1,000. Free stuff. So please
Amen.
subscribe.
Amen to that. And
And I have to say, Texas Front Porch, that's our flagship. We have 5 shows a week, Monday through Friday. And tonight, another buddy of mine, Tex Weston, he's going to be on Space Style Radio with my other friend, Jessica Jones. She's a co-host. She's a host, actually, Saturday and Sunday nights on Space Style Radio, and she's going to be interviewing my buddy Tex, and I think that's at 8 Central or 10 in the East. So go check her and Tex out. And my show, Brunch with Bigfoot Michigan Rob, is 12 noon Central on Thursdays. But again, if you subscribe to the channel, we have 5 shows, so we're on every day, and it's good stuff. In fact, a lot of my haunted tales are on my channel. If you guys want to go listen to them, and I appreciate it. And I appreciate let me plug the show, Tom, and I appreciate being here. And I want to come back, do it again, man. Thanks.
oh, absolutely. You're welcome to come back in the next, maybe after the hot spell comes through, maybe the mid-August or something, once everything kind of set through. Because I got a Bigfoot thing to do in September out in Missouri, where I'm leading a Bigfoot expedition on a crew out there. So, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. I've got a new project too. I'm gonna be doing, actually busting out with Tex and going doing some research, and also we're going to be on me, Tex, and Jason. We were on our first. We spoke at the Alabama Bigfoot Conference in Alabama. Those that are Facebook friends of mine, go check it out. There's a lot of cool pictures. But my next gig is I'm trying to book us on all these shows for next year, because we were really well received, and I'm just saying that, I'm not saying that to my own horn. We had a lot of good feedback, so I'm trying to book us on a bunch of shows for next season, not season, I guess, for the next tour booking or whatever. So hopefully we'll be doing that too in the future. So
Absolutely, sir. Well, everyone that's in the chat, thanks for coming on tonight. And we do have the North Carolina Cryptid and Paranormal Project in Facebook. So if you're not a member, join. You got to answer a couple questions. I'm glad to have you in the group. I know, Duke's not on Facebook, and we all know why Duke's not on Facebook, but we all still love him anyway because Duke's.
Yeah, I know. Dookie,
Happy Father's Day to all the fathers out there. I got my early Father's Day present. I actually got a Blackstone flat griddle grill, and I just cooked some mean steaks on it tonight for dinner. So I'm enjoying awesome. It already.
I got a slab of ribs I'm gonna do tomorrow. We'll see.
Nice. Yeah, I love this thing. It's awesome. But yeah, thanks again for coming on. We'll do this again, and everybody who came in the chat for coming on tonight, thank you for joining, and have a good night.
Yeah, thanks, Tom. Thanks to everybody in chat and listening later. All right.
Good night.
Good night.